Kennywood, located in Pittsburgh in the United States, is a classic American amusement park which has been operational since 1899. It's a lot like Blackpool Pleasure Beach, but American. Classic wooden roller coasters, including a Mobius Loop Woody, check. A hypercoaster which towers over the classics, but is pretty much a classic itself, check. A fan base that absolutely loves the park for its classic rides, check. It's hard to say which park inspired which, because there's simply so many similarities. It could purely be a coincidence, or it could be that both parks have been inspired by each other over the years. The location of Kennywood is not really normal for an amusement park. The park feels like it could be located on a beachfront or a seaside, let's say, but actually it's in an industrial area, which means the park layout is quite unique. So a little overview of the park. Kennywood was designated as a National Historic Landmark in 1987. They've got 3 wooden roller coasters that date back to the 1920s, and alongside those classics, there's steel coasters such as Phantom's Revenge, Exterminator, Skyrocket and Steel Curtain. There's attractions for younger guests too, including Thomastown, a dedicated area to Thomas the Tank and friends. As a roller coaster enthusiast, it's always easy to forget about the attractions which aren't coasters, but at Kennywood that's really something I'd advise against, because their other attractions are well worth a go. They've got Turtle, which will look familiar to anyone who visited Blackpool Pleasure Beach before the 2000s. They've got the Whip, which will look familiar to anyone who visited Blackpool Pleasure Beach before 2005, and they've got Noah's Ark. You see where this is going? Getting back on those types of classic attractions was so good, and without doubt it made me miss doing those kind of attractions in Blackpool, especially the Whip, but on the day it was nice to ride these very old but very fun attractions. Maybe I have a weird sense of humour, but I found it funny hearing Turtle played through the speakers when the turtle ride is in motion. Our visit to Kennywood was on an off-peak day, which meant the park was mostly quiet, but it also meant that some of the rides were closed. So it would be fair to say we missed more than 10 attractions at least, which was unfortunate, but in no way did this reflect badly on our day at the park. For a park which we assumed we'd only ever visit once, leaving was very difficult, and we collectively agreed long before we left that we would without doubt return in the future. It's very rare that a park can have that impression when attractions are closed, but the ride lineup is special, and I'm going to have a more in-depth look at the roller coasters now. Starting with the wooden roller coasters, there's Jack Rabbit, which opened in 1920 and is one of the finest classic wooden roller coasters I've ever been on. The trains leave the rider feeling very exposed. The seating room is tight, but with no restraint it makes for a very fun experience. Even as a seasoned roller coaster enthusiast that's experienced some terrifying airtime moments in the past, this ride had me firmly grabbing onto the grab rail. Most traditional wooden roller coasters start with a turn out of the station and into a lift hill, but not this one. The turn out of the station is there, followed by a large drop. Just like some of the classic wooden attractions at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, this roller coaster was designed by John A. Miller. Thunderbolt is the next wooden roller coaster, and that opened in 1924, again with John A. Miller playing a part in the designs. This roller coaster, like Jack Rabbit, gets straight into it with a large drop out of the station, making use of Kennywood's unique setting. This roller coaster is so wild that riders cannot ride alone. Each row must have 2 riders. This roller coaster for me was a big highlight of the day. So much airtime, fast throughout, and a proper classic Woody that deserves its place alongside the more modern attractions in this park. Racer is Kennywood's Mobius Loop wooden roller coaster, and just like the Grand National, the trains depart together, one turning left and one turning right out of the station. The similarities in terms of layout end there, but like the Grand National, it has a more modern train design than the other 2 Woodies, and what appeared to be a computerised braking system, so admittedly I was wary of how this roller coaster would ride. It was excellent. A very, very enjoyable wooden roller coaster which caught me completely by surprise. The ride experience was just right for a 1927 wooden roller coaster. By this point, I'm sure it'll come as no surprise that John A. Miller designed this coaster. Before I start the hype train for one of my favourite roller coasters at this park and in the world, a little mention about Little Phantom, which is a roller coaster for children. There's Exterminator, which is a reverse spinning roller coaster in the dark. There's also Steel Curtain, but we'll get to that later. Phantom's Revenge. Where do I start with this one? So originally, this roller coaster was an aerodynamics looping hypercoaster. It opened in 1991 as the world's tallest roller coaster, claiming that title due to its ravine drop of 228 foot. Originally, it was called Steel Phantom. There's not many roller coasters that have a significantly bigger second drop than the first drop, but this is one of those, and back in its early years it had inversions too. I won't go into the full story, but the inversions were removed due to complaints and Phantom's Revenge was born, opening in 2001. This roller coaster is special. The train design is certainly unusual with its tiny lap bar and spacious seating, but this definitely helps the experience. The first drop is good, but without any airtime, but then comes the second, larger drop where your backside lifts off the seat and doesn't touch down again for a good number of seconds. It is without doubt one of the greatest moments of airtime I have ever experienced. From that point on, I assumed it would be quite tame based off of POVs that I'd watched, but I couldn't have been any more wrong. There's more moments of airtimes on some of the smaller airtime hills, giving an out of control feeling right through to the brake run. I've watched the POVs of this a lot since and still can't get my head around a coaster looking so average on a POV yet being one of my firm favourite roller coasters anywhere in the world. Steel Curtain. Well, yeah, we missed that one. We hadn't planned to go to Kennywood initially when we did the planning for this trip, and once it was added to the itinerary, we were fairly confident that Steel Curtain would be open with us visiting in early June. Unfortunately, it wasn't open, and it's a credit we have so far not got. We were due to go in June 2020 as a repeat visit, but coronavirus had other ideas. Kennywood is a park I'd never thought I'd get to visit, but got lucky by squeezing it into our packed trip itinerary in 2019. All along I expected it to be the weak link of our trip, but it gave me some of the best moments in an amusement park that I've ever had. Kennywood is a park that values its heritage by keeping its operational rides going for as long as possible. They have taken a hit in recent times due to the pandemic and had to cut their lineup. It's a shame, and I have seen that local visitors are angry, but as we've seen with Blackpool Pleasure Beach, these tough decisions do have to be made from time to time to protect the whole future of the park. Sadly, rides in the early 1900s weren't built to last forever, but parks like Kennywood have made their rides last well over 50 or more years in some cases, and for me that shows they have a real pride in their heritage whilst continuing to modernise the park too. If you ever have the opportunity to visit this park, please take that chance, especially if you love Blackpool Pleasure Beach, because I guarantee you will love this park. You can reach this park by flying into Pittsburgh. I don't know the ins and outs of public transport, but it's roughly a 35-minute drive from the airport, so I'd recommend hiring a car or booking a transfer taxi from the airport. If you've enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you could give it a like. Can you help this video reach 200 likes? Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next Pleasure Beach Experience video.